He's got a piece up in the Detroit News. Romney stands for failed politics of the past. Guest host of this program, Claremont Institute fellow, author of the book No-Go Zones, which you can get on Amazon, and I highly recommend to you. The man himself, Mr. Raheem Kassam, is joining us before his weekend festivities kick off. Raheem, great to have you back.
I don't know about weekend festivities, Buck. It's dry January for me.
Oh my! I don't even know. I don't even know how that's going to go, but it's probably a good thing. You know, we should all get a good start, a good strong start to the new year. Raheem, Romney did this. We've been talking about it all week, and I don't want to overplay this. I have a curiosity about what do you think Romney thinks he was doing here?
Well, look, I mean, let's go back to when Trump was first running for president, and Mitt Romney came out against him. Then Mitt Romney, auditioned for Secretary of State, and President-elect Trump entertained the idea. Then Romney slammed him again. Then Romney sought the Senate seat in Utah, and Trump and the administration gave him their blessing for whatever it was worth. And now he's in the Senate and he's slamming Trump again. So when you want to talk about bad character or poor character, as Mitt Romney suggests in this op-ed in the Washington Post, there's only one person in that relationship between those two men who have shown themselves to be poor of character and repeatedly hypocritical and backstabbing, and that's Mitt Romney. And it comes down to this for me, analyzing this over the last 24 to 48 hours, because I think it is something that requires us to be fleet of foot when it comes to watching the opposition that the Make America Great Again crowd experiences from within its own quote-unquote conservative / GOP ranks. I think that's a very important thing, and it comes down to this. Mitt Romney is not somebody who understands, as I say in my article in the Detroit News, the sort of wild cattery, the risk-taking abilities of somebody like President Trump. Now, those risks sometimes come with rewards, and sometimes they come with failures. But remember, Romney comes from the school of thought that you always do things by the book, play it very safe, and you'll incrementally, very slowly rise. And that's been the sort of conservative GOP mantra for the last 10, 15 years, but it hasn't got them very far. Because fighting against radicals, fighting against the Democrat machine actually requires radicalism in return. Fighting fire with fire is President Trump's whole shtick. And it appears to at least, if not completely be working at this point, it at least is keeping the hardest line elements of the political establishment at bay, and even seeding radical elements within the Democrat Party, like the Alexandra Ocasio-Cortezes, who are now taking the fight to the Democrats from within. If anything, Trump's emboldened the radicals inside the Democrat Party to take on their own establishment. And I think this is what Mitt Romney really despises. Because in a world of eccentrics and in a world of characters, somebody like Mitt Romney disappears. He has no place. So he thinks he can grab some headlines in the Washington Post, he can get some airtime on CNN, and really kick off this sort of new McCain flake-like resistance within. I think actually it's probably going to neuter him in the long term.
What does it say to you that the GOP's last two presidential offerings before Trump were McCain and Romney, who are two of the most vocal anti-Trump Republicans anyone can think of?
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, they had their chance. They had multiple chances to go out there and prove the case, and they failed to do it over and over again because what they didn't do is, A, listen to ordinary people in the United States. They didn't listen to their concerns. They ran on things like tax cuts, which the GOP made the mistake of trying to do at this last midterm election, and look how that worked out. They didn't run on the radical ideas in Washington, D.C., which aren't actually radical ideas in the rest of the country, like, a semblance of border security, or, helping ordinary people find jobs. And look at the jobs numbers today that came out under this radical president. Those are the things that the McCains and the Romneys have shooed for so long and just turned their backs on when it came to actually campaigning. So for Romney and, the failed Weekly Standard and the departing Jeff Flakes of the world, this is their ideology dying. And of course, when an animal is wounded, it will lash out, and that's what Mitt Romney's doing. He is the personification of a dying breed of pseudo-conservatism. And I think if the MAGA types, if the Trumpists, Trumpites, whatever you want to call them, if they're good enough and they're smart enough to see that, they can actually bury that pseudo-conservatism for a good generation.
Raheem Kassam, everybody. Raheem, can we bring you back right after this break? Because I want to ask you about what's being called by some the victimhood populism of Tucker Carlson. Others are saying Tucker Carlson nailed it in this monologue earlier this week where he diagnosed some of the problems. Can you talk about that? Do you have a minute?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're going to stick with Raheem Kassam. We'll be back in just a moment.
Now, you had said before the shutdown that he was being quite cavalier and that maybe the shutdown would give him more time to golf. But in the end, it was you that took a holiday.
I didn't take a holiday. I observed the Christmas holiday for a few days, and cut in half the time I would have had with my family.
Was that a cheap shot?
But the fact, it's not. It's unimportant. It's totally unimportant. The president may not know this, but Hawaii is part of the United States of America. Maybe he doesn't realize that.
I love how we're back with Raheem Kassam here, author of No Go Zones, Claremont Institute fellow, guest host of the show you're listening to right now. Raheem, I like how Pelosi there is asked by Savannah Guthrie if she made a cheap shot in another context, and then she follows it up with she pivots to a different cheap shot, which is maybe the president doesn't know Hawaii is part of the U.S., which was neither clever nor insightful. But I do have this question about how it is that there are so many people who believe that Nancy Pelosi has the interests of the American people at heart. I really, I want to talk about Trump populism and how some conservatives have issues with that. But to me, Pelosi is the quintessential limousine liberal. Couldn't be more, distant from normal Americans and their concerns. And yet we're always told that she's practically like a social justice warrior who just, has hashtag resistance tattooed on her arms. It's crazy to me.
Well, she's going to be in a lot of trouble over this Congress, I think, and mostly from her own side. She doesn't represent what the Democrat Party base, the active base at least, is wishing for in this Congress. She barely manages to cobble together enough, support not in the sense of the number of votes she gets to become speaker, but in the sense of the rhetorical and passion support that you need amongst your own, your parliamentary party, effectively, to guide them. I mean, we've already got stories in the last 24 hours about, this MoveOn.org party from last night, where you've got one of the congresswomen swearing and saying we're going to impeach Trump, which is something that Pelosi had tried to get them away from the talking points of. The media over here is fascinated by people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I think Pelosi, number one, will get very envious of that, but number two, will lose a lot of power within her own party as a result. So she's going to be constantly vying for power inside. You're right. She has to prove that she can represent what Trump represents to the conservative base. And I'm afraid she doesn't. She's sort of like the Paul Ryan figure in her own party. And Paul Ryan lost so much credibility and support over the last couple of years that he almost became irrelevant to most conversations about the future of conservatism.
Now, on the issue of conservatism as it should be today, or where the right should be focusing its energy, there was a Tucker Carlson monologue that was also then turned into an essay, or maybe it was an essay turned into a monologue, whatever it was. It was on populism this week and really diagnosing some of the problems of American society and some of the inadequacies of the political elites in addressing that. Of course, anything that Tucker says, you're going to have a lot of pushback from the left. They're going to say it's terrible, it's racist, whatever. They'll always have the same knee-jerk reactions to it. But there were many on the right of the kind of Weekly Standard, National Review, Never Trump variety who were saying that this is perpetuating victimhood, that this idea of a populist conservative movement that needs to take care of workers, that needs to reassess global trade and the free market at all costs mantra that we've had is somehow a sellout of principles. Yes. You know, you were there in the early days with Bannon talking about things like populism for conservatives. What do you make of this?
Well, look, I'm glad that it's finally getting the airtime it deserves as a new guiding philosophy for the political right. And Fox News, not exactly the most populist or nationalist outlet out there, giving Tucker Carlson the airtime to do this, I think it can only be a very good thing. You know, we should be welcoming conversations like this, but instead David French in National Review, they poo-poo it. They say, you know, that this is a debasement of conservative values. Now, you know, British and American conservative values differ quite a bit, and I understand that. But I've also come to understand that when you talk about conservatism in America nowadays, people automatically think free market capitalism, low taxes, and perhaps, even though not in practice, the theory of limited government. They don't really talk enough about, especially not in D.C., family values, sovereignty, border control, jobs, wages. You know, as Tucker Carlson said in his monologue, dignity, human dignity. And this has been the clarion call of the so-called populists in Europe over the last 5 or 6 years. When you look to Hungary and Italy and the Czech Republic and Austria and the United Kingdom's Brexit vote, the human dignity element came in a very strong way. You know, people in the United States, the average family would struggle to put $450 together in case their boiler breaks down in their home. That's an undignified position for the world's wealthiest nation to impart upon its citizens. So something has been broken, but the establishment right didn't want to admit it because it would mean having to admit that there was something fundamentally incorrect in their ideology. Now, conservatism isn't supposed to be an ideology like a lot of the left-wing dogmas. It's actually supposed to be a guiding philosophy. And the guiding philosophy behind that is effectively the nuclear family in your community. So it was incredible that Tucker managed to do that for 15 minutes. And I understand it's gone super viral on the internet in the last 24 hours. And I think that's because for all of the magazines and quarterlies and journals out there, nobody's managed to boil it down just so succinctly and to such a massive audience. And of course, that will cause what I call conservative ink, you know, the consultant class, the think tank class that you know in Washington, D.C., you know, the guys that are feeding us all those free drinks over the Christmas period, but at their fancy Christmas parties. It causes them great irritation.
The drinks were good.
They now have to go back to their donors. The drinks were fine, it was all right, but the conversations were not like this, and it's so refreshing to me that Tucker is moving these conversations on. And as an addendum to that, he's written an amazing article as well this quarter in the American Conservative magazine about the foolish and endless wars that Western nations have found themselves dragged into. So he's really becoming a torchbearer for the populist right, and I say more power to him.
Who's written that article, Raheem?
Tucker Carlson.
Oh, Tucker wrote an article, American Conservative. I didn't know that he wrote about that. That's I'll have to find that one. I've obviously seen the I've seen the monologue from this week. I like the robust debate, and I give the guys on the other side of this one who at least put their names to things and want to engage with these ideas seriously credit for being a part of an important discussion on the right and not just being, you know, because there really are, and I think it's important to keep in mind, there are people that just disagree with some aspects of Trump's, you know, nationalism, Trump's view of trade. You know, there are places to have disagreement on policy, never mind on the personal matters. And then there are the people like Ana Navarro or Jennifer Rubin who are just in no meaningful way on the right, except to pretend they are so they can trash people on the right. So those are the people that I have no time for and don't need to hear from at all. And I'm fine with.
But just like if I could, just I would be okay with that as well. And in fact, I would like to see some of these ideas played out in massive debate settings. But David French, at the end of his National Review column, criticizing Tucker Carlson, says the populist elevation of the political over the personal is perhaps the worst possible response. He's not actually tackling the ideas. He's just saying, that bad, me good. And that's all I'm afraid the establishment has at the moment. It's not willing to say, well, actually, the ideas that we've been espousing, the McCain, the Romney, the Ryan ideas for the last 12 years plus, have failed a lot of people in the country. So I've yet to see anybody on the political establishment take Tucker or Bannon or anything like that hyper seriously. I'd like to see someone step up to the plate, but I don't think we are going to see anyone.
Well, I mean, to the earlier points that we were making here, there is a lot of personal investment that some of the voices in this have just in being right above making sure that the movement is pushing in the right direction and acting in ways that are for the betterment of the entire country. Right. So I think that there's essentially we're in the midst of a giant clash of egos on the right. And for a lot of people, they can't get beyond the fact that, Trump hasn't been their guy and they don't want to hear it. I mean, today I was dealing with some people who are even who are on the right, and they were just saying, well, the jobs numbers, I guess they're good. No, they're good. It's a good jobs number.
Well, Buck, I'll tell you what. Anytime
you want to host
the debate, you want to moderate because you're a very fair guy. If you want to moderate the debate, I'll take part on the populist nationalist side. You find me an establishment conservative who can hold their own against me in debate. I'll be there 10 out of 10 times.
Well, I love this idea, actually, and I'm not. This is not just a throwaway for me. Before we let you go to enjoy your weekend, Raheem, if I could help arrange a conservative populism versus traditionalist GOP debate for with you, who would you want to have on the other side of that? I mean, or you give me a couple of names. Who comes to mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it would have to be someone from the National Review stable. Could be somebody from. I think there are some people like that way inclined at the Federalist. I think I can get you a short list of 5 to 10 people. We should do this.
Yeah, no, we should. We have the ability and the resources and the platforms to do it. So Raheem, let's give this one some thought because I do want this discussion to be aired out more. I do think people need to hear it and not just, Trump mean, Trump say bad things on Twitter, Trump nasty to women, therefore my side wins. Well, if we're talking about trade, I don't really care what Trump is writing on Twitter. But if we're talking about the purpose that people should feel day to day in their lives as Americans, I think that's worth more. And that's a more important issue than just the back and forth that we've been seeing a lot of the time. Anyway, I've obviously had fun talking to Raheem because we've gone way over time here. Check out No-Go Zones. Follow Raheem on Twitter if you're not already, and we'll have Raheem back again soon. Raheem, have a great weekend, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. You too, bud. Cheers.